When the
You will
human she
ride
married
north at
released his
once.
power, the
Take this
alien
man
queen
with
could
you.
only stare
He
in
has
shock.
questions to answer before
Her
the
people
council.
were tall, silver-skinned, and born warriors. Their ships ruled entire sectors. Their armies had crushed civilizations older than Earth itself. And now, their bodies were soft, their technology unimpressive, and their empire small. Most species saw them as clever traders at best or emotional liabilities at worst. Yet here the human stood, alone, unarmed, waiting at the center of the great crystal hall. His name was Elias Ward. He wore no armor, no royal robes, only a simple dark uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. His hands were relaxed at his sides, his breathing slow and steady. Thousands of alien nobles watched him from floating platforms. Their eyes glowed, their claws tapped. Their whispers echoed like insects. Is that really him? So small, one strike would break him. Why would the queen choose this? Elias heard none of it, or pretended not to. His eyes were focused forward, calm and clear. At the far end of the hall, the massive doors began to open. Light poured in. Queen Zyra entered. She was taller than any human, her silver skin glowing beneath ceremonial armor. Her crown floated above her head, held by anti-gravity fields. Her eyes shone like molten stars. She had conquered worlds, she had broken kings, and yet today she was walking toward a human husband. The entire hall bowed. Elias did not out of disrespect, but because he had been told not to. Zyra stopped a few steps in front of him. Her gaze moved slowly over his face, measuring him, searching for fear. She found none, only patience. "Human," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "You stand before the queen of the Virelian dominion. Do you understand what this union means?" "Yes," Elias replied calmly, her eyes narrowed. "You will belong to this empire, you will live and die under my rule." "Yes," he said again, "you will be watched, tested, judged." "Yes." A ripple of quiet laughter spread through the nobles. Zyra stepped closer, towering over him now. "And if you fail," Elias met her gaze for the first time, "then I will accept the consequences." Something flickered behind her eyes, surprise. The ceremony continued, but the tension never faded. When the final words were spoken and the bond was sealed, the galaxy changed forever. But no one in that hall realized it yet. The first night the royal chambers were vast and cold. Alien symbols glowed faintly along the walls. The air hummed with energy. Elias stood near the window looking out at the capital city stretching across the planet. Behind him, Queen Zyra watched silently. "You do not tremble," she said. "No," Elias replied. "Do you not fear me?" He turned slowly. "Fear is useful only when it teaches caution." "I am cautious." She studied him carefully. "Every being who has stood before me has feared death," she said, "even kings." Elias gave a small smile. "Humans learned long ago that fear doesn't stop death, it only stops living." Her brow furrowed slightly. That answer disturbed her. She turned away. "You may rest. Tomorrow you will learn what it means to live among predators." Elias bowed his head slightly. "I look forward to it." As the doors closed behind her, the queen paused. For just a moment, she felt uneasy. Whispers in the dark in the days that followed, the palace buzzed with rumors. Some said the human was a spy. Others claimed he was a sacrifice meant to bring peace. A few whispered something more dangerous, that he was hiding something. Elias moved through the palace calmly. He spoke kindly to servants. He asked questions. He listened. When nobles insulted him, he smiled. When guards tried to intimidate him, he thanked them for their concern. When assassins tested the palace defenses, he stepped aside at the perfect moment, never revealing how he knew. Queen Zyra watched it all. She arranged trials for him, mental puzzles meant to break minds. He solved them quietly. Physical endurance tests meant to humiliate him. He completed them without complaint. Social traps meant to provoke rage. He walked away untouched, and always he refused to fight back. "Why do you hold yourself back?" she finally asked one evening. Elias looked at her carefully. Because some doors should never be opened unless there is no other choice. Her eyes darkened. You speak as if you know what waits behind them. I do. The warning came 3 weeks after the wedding. An emergency signal pierced the palace. An enemy fleet had entered Virelian space. The Kryn Dominion, a brutal empire that had waited years for weakness. They had been waiting for this marriage. They think you are distracted, one general said. They believe a human consort makes you weak. The queen stood tall. Prepare the fleets. But even as orders were given, the truth became clear. The Kryn forces were too many, too fast, too close. Cities burned in the outer systems. Defense lines collapsed. Panic spread. The queen clenched her fists. For the first time in decades, she felt doubt. She turned and saw Elias standing quietly at the edge of the chamber, watching, thinking. "Why are you so calm?" she demanded. "Because I was hoping it wouldn't come to this," he said. "To what?" He met her eyes. "To me stepping in." Silence filled the chamber. The generals stared. The queen's voice lowered. "You speak as if you are a weapon." Elias exhaled slowly. "No," he said. "I am what comes after weapons fail." The warning alarms did not stop. They screamed across the capital world like wounded beasts, echoing through towers and streets. Red light flooded the sky as defense grids powered up, one after another, struggling to keep pace with the incoming threat. From the highest balcony of the royal palace, Queen Zyra watched the stars move. No. The Kryn Dominion had come in full force. "They are not testing us," one of her generals said quietly. "They are here to end us." Zyra said nothing. Her hands were clenched behind her back. Her eyes burned with fury, but beneath it something else stirred. Fear. She turned slightly and saw Elias standing near the far pillar, silent as ever. The alarms did not seem to bother him. His breathing was slow, his face calm, too calm. "Why do you still stand so quietly?" she demanded. "The galaxy is about to fall into war." Elias looked at the projection of the approaching fleet. "No," he said, "it's about to remember something." She frowned. "What does that mean?" He didn't answer. The first strike, the Kryn fleet opened fire without warning. Space lit up like a burning ocean. Beams of plasma tore through defense lines. Virelian cruisers exploded in flashes of blue and gold. Entire squadrons vanished in seconds. The Queen's commanders shouted orders. Shields failing. Outer ring collapsing. Enemy fighters breaking through. On the planet below, citizens looked up in terror as the sky glowed red. Zyra felt rage surge through her veins. She raised her arm. "Deploy everything," she ordered. "No retreat." The Virelian fleet surged forward and was crushed. Their weapons barely slowed the enemy. Their ships were torn apart like fragile glass. This was not a battle, it was a slaughter. The Queen turned sharply toward Elias. "You said you hoped it wouldn't come to this," she said coldly. "Explain yourself, now." He finally looked at her fully. "Your people fight with honor," he said, "but honor doesn't stop extinction." "What are you saying?" He hesitated. For the first time she saw something in his eyes, regret. "Humans learned long ago," he said quietly, "that survival doesn't belong to the strongest but to the ones who are willing to change themselves." She stepped closer. "You speak in riddles." He met her gaze. "Because the truth frightens everyone." A memory of Earth. Far from the battlefield, deep inside his mind, Elias remembered Earth. Not the peaceful one, the dying one. He remembered skies filled with fire, cities falling, the air choking with ash. He remembered humanity facing an enemy it could not defeat with ships or bombs. So they did the unthinkable. They changed themselves, not with machines, not with weapons, but with restraint. They built something inside their own bodies, a sealed system, a final answer, a power meant never to be used unless the end had truly come. Only a few were chosen to carry it, and fewer still survived. Elias had been one of them. The Queen's test, another explosion shook the palace. A nearby defense platform shattered, raining burning debris across the city. The Queen staggered slightly. Elias caught her arm. For a moment their eyes locked. "You said you would accept the consequences," she said sharply. "Now I demand you explain yourself." He released her arm slowly. "There is a reason humans were allowed to survive among the stars," he said. "We promised never to rule, never to conquer." "Then what are you?" she demanded. He took a deep breath. "We are the last safeguard." A tremor passed through the floor. The enemy fleet had broken through the inner defense ring. The Queen looked at the tactical display and knew the truth. They had minutes, not hours. "Do something," she whispered. The words surprised even her. Elias closed his eyes. "I will," he said. "But once I do, nothing will be the same between our peoples." She swallowed. "If you can save my world," she said, voice shaking, "I will accept any cost." He opened his eyes. "Then do not stop me." The seal begins to break. Elias stepped forward into the center of the command hall. The lights flickered. The air grew heavy. Several officers gasped as pressure built around him, unseen but powerful. "What is happening?" one shouted. The Queen could not answer. She felt it too. A presence, ancient, focused, controlled. Elias placed his hand over his chest. A faint glow appeared beneath his skin, blue at first, then white, then something deeper, something that made reality itself feel unstable. "This power was never meant to be used for conquest," he said calmly, "only to end extinction." The floor cracked beneath his feet. Energy surged outward in slow waves. Screens shattered. Alarms died. Silence fell across the room. Then, far above, the enemy fleet stopped moving. Every ship froze in place, not destroyed, not damaged, simply stopped. The Queen stared at the tactical display, unable to breathe. "What have you done?" she whispered. Elias did not look proud. "I asked them to stop," he said softly. "The galaxy holds its breath." Across space, the Kryn fleet hung motionless. Their weapons powered down, their engines silent. Their commanders screamed orders that went unheard, because something far older than their technology had taken hold, something that bent gravity, time, and force without effort. The Queen slowly stepped toward Elias. "You could have done this at any time," she said. "Yes." "Then why didn't you?" He looked at her, pain clear in his eyes. "Because once humanity shows this power, the galaxy will never look at us the same way again." She understood then. This was not strength. It was responsibility and fear. Outside, the sky began to change color as the energy field expanded. The enemy fleet started to fall apart, not exploding but unraveling, as if reality itself rejected them. One by one, their ships vanished into nothingness. No screams, no fire, just silence. The battle was over. The war ended before it could begin. Aftermath. The Queen stood frozen, staring at the empty sky. Her empire was saved. Her people were alive. And yet, she had never felt smaller. Elias swayed slightly. She rushed forward and caught him before he fell. His breathing was heavy now, his skin pale. "That power," she whispered. "What did it cost you?" He smiled weakly. "More than I wanted to give." She held him tightly. Around them, officers knelt not to her but to him. The human who had ended a war without firing a shot. The human who had reminded the galaxy why some species choose peace. High above, the stars returned to their quiet glow, but nothing would ever be the same again. The stars were silent. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Queen Zyra sat in her private chamber, her silver hands folded tightly in her lap. Outside, the city was alive again. Lights flickered, ships hovered cautiously, citizens peered curiously into the skies. But inside, the Queen felt a storm she could not name. Elias stood near the window. His face was calm again, though his eyes carried the weight of centuries he did not live. The energy he had released was fading from the city, leaving only quiet. Yet the room felt different, dangerous, alive. Zyra turned toward him. What you did," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I have seen countless empires rise and fall, countless generals fall to their own hubris, countless worlds burn, but I have never seen anything like that." Elias' gaze met hers. Because you never believed humans could do it, she flinched. We thought you fragile, weak, soft, easy to bend, easy to break, but you are nothing like we imagined. He shook his head slowly. Fragile we may appear, soft perhaps. But humanity learned that true strength is not in domination or conquest. It is in restraint, in knowing when to act and when to hold back. Her eyes narrowed. And you restrained nothing. You unleashed that power. Entire fleets gone. I unleashed nothing I didn't have to, he said softly. The Kryn Dominion was on the brink of destroying this system. There was no other choice. Zyra remained silent. Her mind raced. Every corner of the galaxy knew the Virelian Dominion's might. And yet a single human, married into her court, considered weak, had undone what generations of Virelian warriors could not. Her pride, her authority, even her sense of control, all trembled in the quiet aftermath. The political storm the next day, the palace erupted in activity. The Virelian nobles gathered, their eyes wide with confusion and fear. Whispered rumors spread faster than wildfire. The human, he stopped the Kryn fleet, alone. Zyra observed them silently. She felt the tremor of old fears, her nobles, her advisors, her warriors, beginning to look at her with doubt. Not doubt in her, but doubt in their own judgment. And perhaps doubt in their superiority. One of the generals finally dared to speak. His voice trembled, though he tried to hide it. Your Majesty, the human, what has he done? Is he under your command? Zyra's lips pressed into a thin line. He is my consort, and he acted only when I allowed it. But the general began. Enough, her voice cut through the room like a blade. He acted because the Kryn Dominion threatened this world, and he saved it. That is all that matters. But inside she felt uneasy. The power he wielded, it was not something she could command, control, or contain. It was something alien to the galaxy itself, something that could tip balances beyond imagination. And yet, she found herself staring at him, not with fear but with awe. The human consort's secret. Later that evening, Zyra sought Elias in private. The palace corridors were quiet. Shadows stretched across the walls like ancient spirits. You didn't just act, she said softly. You changed the rules of war, entire fleets, entire systems, you erased them. Elias nodded. Not erased, paused, redirected. You see, humans have always understood that the galaxy is a fragile balance. When it tilts too far toward destruction, someone must intervene. You speak as if you have been preparing for this your entire life. I have, he admitted. Humanity learned long ago that brute strength can destroy everything. We developed powers, yes, but powers meant for protection, never for conquest. And we chose to restrain them. I carry one such power. Zyra's eyes widened. One such power? You mean there are others like you? He looked at her solemnly. Yes, but only a few survived the process. Only a few were trained to awaken it in emergencies. I was one, and now I have fulfilled my duty. She paused. Duty? You speak as if you were born to be a weapon. He smiled faintly. I was born to survive. To ensure life continues. If humans ever had to act, it was never for glory, always for balance. For the first time, Zyra understood something profound. Humans did not seek dominion over others. They did not fight to conquer. They fought to endure, to protect, to survive, even if it meant sacrificing themselves in the process. And now, this human had saved her empire without killing a single one of her own people. The queen's conflict, the queen could not rest. She wandered the balcony, staring at the city below. Fires from the earlier battle had mostly been extinguished, but smoke still rose in thin streams. Citizens were emerging cautiously, their eyes wide with awe. The Kryn invaders were gone, but their message lingered. No one was untouchable. Zyra clenched her fists. She had ruled empires, conquered worlds, broken kings, and yet she felt small. The human beside her did not seem small at all. He was calm, measured, unshakable. And yet he had changed the galaxy with a single act. She turned to him. Do you know what you have done? Yes, Elias said simply. I reminded the galaxy that power without wisdom is meaningless. Her voice trembled. Do you know what this will mean for you, for us? He shook his head. I do not seek reward, I only seek balance. Humans never seek power for themselves. Zyra stared at him in silence. Slowly she realized something terrifying. Humans had survived for millennia, not because they were the strongest, but because they were willing to endure, to learn, and to restrain themselves. And now one of them stood in her court, having shown the galaxy that her mighty empire, was not invincible. The empire reacts word of Elias' action spread across the Virelian dominion. Some nobles cheered, some panicked, some whispered of betrayal. Perhaps the queen has been weak to trust a human, one elder said quietly to another. No, the other replied. Perhaps we have been weak to think ourselves greater than them. The Kryn dominion, meanwhile, retreated in confusion. Their leaders could not comprehend what had happened. Entire fleets vanished. Their technology failed without explanation. Rumors spread across their territories. A human consort had saved the Virelian Empire. Everywhere, the galaxy paused to reassess. Humans, once considered weak, were no longer ignored, no longer underestimated. Even Zyra's own council hesitated to issue orders, fearing what might happen if they provoked the human consort. The Queen's test. Despite the praise, Zyra could not let herself forget one thing. Elias had power she could not control. She arranged a private test, not to harm him, not to provoke him, but to understand him. In a remote training chamber, she placed him in simulations far more dangerous than any battlefield. Alien invaders, collapsing cities, fleets of unstoppable machines. Elias endured each test with calm precision. When she asked him why he didn't simply annihilate the enemies, he replied, because they are life too. I only act to prevent extinction, not to punish. Her pride warred with her awe. Here was a man she had married as part of a political alliance, who had just proven himself stronger than her entire empire. And yet, he carried humility like a shield. The first hint of fear. One night, as they stood together on the palace balcony, Zyra finally spoke the question that had haunted her for weeks. What would happen if someone forced you to fight without restraint? Elias turned to her, his face serious. Then the galaxy would see humans at their worst. That is why the power is sealed. That is why only a few of us exist. Humans survived by controlling themselves, not by losing control. She looked at him in silence. The stars above glimmered, indifferent to mortal concerns. And yet, she could not shake the feeling that the calm human beside her held the balance of the galaxy in his hands. The warning returns before dawn. The palace received another message. A distant system, part of the Kryn dominion, had noticed the disappearance of their fleets. Rumors of a human consort reached them. Threats followed. Your human has interfered with our expansion, a message read. Prepare for retaliation. Zyra clenched her fists. So it begins again, she muttered. Elias stood beside her. Then we prepare. But remember, we do not fight for conquest. We fight to protect. Her eyes softened. For the first time, she realized that humans did not inspire fear. They inspired caution, respect, and perhaps hope.